All right, good evening, everyone. If you have space next to you, I know we still have some folks who are coming in, so we'll have some volunteers keeping an eye out. But if, you see some volunteers walking around, raise your hand. Carrie, raise your hand right here. Carrie's going to be helping me out on the floor tonight. So if you have space next to you, I'm kind of keeping track as well. We want to make sure we have space for other folks who are coming in. So before we get kicked off, I'm going to give it to Tom Mann with Downey Avenue Christian Church.
Good evening, everybody. This is church, call and response. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. On behalf of Pastor Melody and the rest of the members of Downey, we are very happy to be able to open up this space for a community conversation. We believe that church should be an open space and should serve its community. We are happy to serve in this way. As Andy mentioned, the bathrooms are back there in the narthex, which is a fancy church word for lobby. If you need to use that, we ask that there be no food or drink, so that way we don't have to clean it up later. And I get that this can be a controversial subject, that emotions can run high. Just ask that you remember that this is a sacred space. Or as my grandmother would say, Jesus is watching, y'all behave. All right. I hope that this is a good, instructive, informative, civil use of our time. And with that, I'll hand it over to Andy.
Thank you very much, Tom. And so I also want to give a specific thank you to Downey Avenue Christian Church for providing access to the space tonight. If you are able to do so, I encourage you to make a donation to the I Can Food Pantry, which provides food access for vulnerable neighbors here on the east side. So if you're able to, I encourage you to do that. My name is Andy Nielsen, for those of you who don't know, City Councilor for District 14 here on the east side. Tom really said it well, but I'm just going to go over a few other things for tonight. We're going to hear from DC Blocks directly. They're going to have the opportunity to give a presentation uninterrupted. When you came in, there was an opportunity to write down some questions. Carrie and I will continue to monitor folks for additional questions you have written down. We'll then go into a structured Q&A session, which is just for if 6 or 7 people are asking all the same questions. We're going to ask the question once. If we don't have good questions for that time, we'll move right into the open forum. So we'll make this microphone, we'll go right here. When you walked in, if you wanted to sign up, I will pull from that list first. So we'll kind of, announce it in groups of 4. You'll line up, and if there's time after that structured hour, there will be an opportunity for other folks from the community to stand right up and give their testimony. Everyone will be given a minute and a half. Can we all agree that everyone's going to get a minute and a half so that everyone who wants to speak can speak? Can we all agree to that? All right, thank you. Kelby up here. Kelby, raise your hand. Kelby will be helping you stick to your minute and a half with some fun signs so that we ensure we're sticking to the minute and a half. And this is, again, just an opportunity for everyone who wants to speak in that hour to do so. Again, tonight is an opportunity to learn, provide transparency in this process, and for genuine community engagement. I want to be perfectly clear with every single member of District 14 on the east side as I stand 100% with you in this process. Doing this tonight is part of that. Regardless of where you are at on this development right now, where you may evolve or where you may harden into, we as a community should be able to have tough conversations, a safe place to do so, and to do so, and I'm an animated person, so I understand, but to still do so with some level of decorum where, we're providing a safe space for people to share their thoughts. I ask if you have signed up and you happen to maybe not live in District 14, that you maybe say pass, and we'll make time for you at the end. Again, while we didn't ID anyone, we didn't check zip codes, we're not checking addresses. This is an opportunity for Eastsiders first to really make sure that they are getting questions answered. They get some feedback back to DC Blocks, and the DC Blocks gets to see if this is a place that they want to continue to pursue, right? That's what all of this should be, and I go back to this should be the way that we handle big conversations and big issues in our community, so I think this is a good first step in doing so. So again, if you have any of those written questions, please raise your hand. Carrie and I will be around to get those, and with that, I will kick it over to David with DC Blocks, who will be giving the presentation. So thank you, David.
Thank you, Councilor Nielsen. And thank you all for having us. Thank you, Downey Avenue Christian Church, for opening your space to us. Again, I'm David Armistead. I'm Senior Vice President at DC Blocks. I'm going to start by telling a story on myself, to give my testimony. I was raised by a hippie and a preacher. My mom was a flower child in the late 1960s in Northern California, and that's where she met my dad, who was a seminarian who wanted to be a minister. And they fell in love, they got married, they had my older brother, and then they had me. And as you might expect, or you wouldn't be surprised by the fact that when I was little, having my hippie mom and my preacher dad, we didn't have a whole lot of money. In fact, we qualified for government assistance. The best part about that for me, though, was I got to go to Head Start. And for those of you who don't know, Head Start's a program that's for pre-K to get kids prepared for kindergarten. I remember the first day of Head Start like it was yesterday, even though I was 4 years old. And I remember holding my mom's hand and going into the classroom. The teacher's desk was on the left. All the kids were lined up on the right. And I was terrified. I didn't know anybody, and they didn't know me. And what made matters worse is I started to have an accident in my pants. And fortunately, the teacher saw that, recognized what was going on, and she asked one of the boys to take me down the hall and show me where the bathroom was. And I didn't know it, but that boy, his name is Tony Simmons, he became my best friend for the next 2.5 years until my family moved again. And with my dad as a minister, we moved a lot, and I got to know what it was like to be in front of a class, in front of a group, and not know any of them, and them not know me. And I share that story because I feel like DC Blocks is kind of in this awkward moment coming into Indianapolis where we don't know y'all, and y'all don't know us, but we are trying to make an effort to get to know the community through forums like this, through outreach, by providing ways for you to provide input to us in our process. And it's complicated by the fact that it's not popular to be in the data center business right now. And it's really popular to go online and social media especially and hate on data centers. But what I would tell you is, you over here, not all data centers are the same, and not all data center companies are the same. And if there's a data center that was irresponsible and they're getting a lot of hate, and that's well deserved. But what we want to go through tonight in an effort to be transparent about ourselves and about our project, specifically here in Indianapolis, we want to take you through that and share with you why we believe it can be mutually beneficial to the community, the DC Blocks, and where we can really work to form a symbiotic relationship. And so that's what we're going to try to take you through. I hope you'll have an open mind about it, and we've got some slides to go through that with you. We can go to the first one. The next slide. So a little bit about DC Blocks. We were founded in 2014. The current leadership came into place in 2017. We're headquartered in Atlanta. Our financial backer primarily is Future Standard, which is a large private equity firm. And we've been building and operating data centers mostly across the Southeast by virtue of the fact that we're headquartered in Atlanta. We have been growing recently down to Florida, up to Virginia, and we would really like to come into your community here in Indianapolis. Next slide. This is our project team. And I would ask, if you're from DC Blocks or you're here with DC Blocks, I know our GC law firm and so forth, would you stand up just so everybody can see who you are? So we have a lot of people. Thank you all very much. We'll go through a few people. I just wanted to show you who traveled in to have this meeting and conversation with you, because I don't have all the answers, but we have representatives from site selection, from construction, from operations, really across the board, and you can see their qualities here. I will want to welcome home Greg Carrender. Greg, if you would, say hey. Greg's a Hoosier, and he and his family are from this area specifically, and I'll let him tell you more about it. The one thing that stood out to me is that he learned to swim at Ellenberger Park. So I think one of the points I wanted to make is we do care about getting upfront information and feedback from you in this process, and that's why we're showing up with the people that we have here tonight. Next slide. Community engagement. We've done this before. For some of the conversations that I've had with folks, I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and I often talk about the parallels to our project in Birmingham and our proposed project in Indianapolis. It was developed at a former manufacturing site. It was a former steel mill. It's a brownfield site, so there's not a lot else you can do with it other than light industrial or manufacturing. It's in a historic neighborhood. It's a neighborhood called Titusville. It's where Condoleezza Rice grew up. It's a great place. It also has interstate and railroad tracks pretty close by. One of the things that we did when we went into Birmingham, like what we're doing in Indianapolis, is reaching out to try to get to know the community and understand what their needs are so that we can be good neighbors and sensitive to those and invest in the community. And we've had examples of that. We, across the street from this building in the top left is a park. It's called Memorial Park, and the community told us that they needed to have a computer lab for the kids for after school so they could do their homework. And so DC Blocks invested. We donated the computer lab. We maintained it and made sure the Wi-Fi was working, and the students used that. And it became particularly important during COVID. When COVID hit, though, we were told that a lot of the families were struggling because many of the families didn't have computers in the home. And so DC Blocks donated hundreds of computers, not just for the students, but for the families, so that they could do online work from their house. Let's see. Next slide. This is some of our outreach for awareness. So we ran over the last 2 weeks, we've pushed social media campaigns on Facebook and Instagram. 30,000 people, unique views, 91,000 views, and it's driven over 1,000 clicks onto our landing page, which is the page that has all the information, the website that has all the information about our project. Next slide. We sent 7,200 postcards to the residents in Irvington, in Warren Township, in the east side, in the immediate vicinity of this proposed project, to take them again to our project page, which has information about the site as well as announcements for upcoming meetings and this forum. Next one. And that is the website. For those of you who haven't been there yet, it's dcblocksindy.com. And it'll take you to a landing page that has all of our documents, our commitments, which are binding, and so forth. Next. And then we've been well covered in the media. This is a sample of, Indiana Business Journal, Mirror Indy, Weekly View, Fox News, a lot of press, And these have been online. These have also hit social media. These have been showing up in my reels also. Next. And here's what else we're doing. We're trying to come in to get to know the neighborhood. We are, going and having pizza at Giacomo's. Yesterday I went to Wild Child, which has a really good vibe for coffee. It's not far from here. But spending time to get to know the people and the places, I think, is my point there. Next. Next, I wanted to talk about just some basics about data centers. There is a data center in the east side right now. It's the Eastgate Data Center, and I understand it's been there for about 20 years. This is, in terms of power consumption, roughly the same amount of power that we have planned for our phase one, for our project. But basically, this is a concrete building. It's kind of a bunker. These are 10-inch thick reinforced concrete walls and concrete roofing structures. And inside that building, we have computers. The computers sit in racks that are about the size of a small refrigerator. And they run, and then they generate heat because those computers are running. So we have to provide cooling to the computers. We provide physical security to the space. And then the last thing I wanted to point out is that data centers are all interconnected with fiber optic cables. That's how it gets the data from one data center to the other. Next slide. So why do we need data centers? I've gotten comments about, well, we just don't need our phones anymore, or we shouldn't have AI. But it's a lot more than that. If you think about, I was thinking about this. I came up early, and I went to church in the east side, not this one, but a different church, yesterday. And I was thinking about, in those 2 hours, how much I used data centers. So I used Google Maps to find the church. I went into the church, and they had a QR code for the program. They had they were streaming the service like we're doing right here for this community forum. The giving was done through QR code on phones. In fact, this church had probably 700 to 800 people in it, and the pastor asked everyone to raise up their phones because they were about to do the QR code, and it was amazing to see everyone's phones that were up. We use data in ways that we don't even think about. If you even have a flip phone and you make a phone call to your kids, that's a data plan with a cell phone provider. All of that data, including that phone call, is passed through a data center. Data centers are becoming very prevalent across the United States. There are really a lot of them now, which is why it's such a hot topic. But it's for these everyday activities. It's not just for Instagram and AI. Is there a sign at the back? Next, thanks. So why do we need data centers here? The Thunderbird Commerce Center is zoned I-3. It is a brownfield site. And I've heard comments of, well, why don't we just not develop it? And I'm going to let Vincent talk about that in a little bit from Louth. Louth owns that property. They're developing all of it. It will be used, and it can't have affordable housing on it because it's brownfield. There are only certain uses that it can have. And we really believe that our project, our DC Blocks project, is the highest and best use. We've done studies, and we'll talk about this in a moment, on emissions, because diesel emissions seem to be a really big issue that people are concerned about. And they should be. With our data centers, we have diesel backup generators, and they do have emissions. We test those generators 30 minutes once a month, and then we do a load test 4 hours once a year. 30 minutes once a month for our generators is far, far less, and we have the data to back it up, than having that site be developed as a distribution center or truck parking, where those diesel trucks run their exhaust all day, every day. And so while it's not, favorable to have any emissions, we all drove here, we all had emissions with our cars, we have less than what could be there otherwise. We do believe that DC Blocks is the highest and best use of this site, and we believe that it can be done responsibly so that it's the best in terms of environmental health and safety for the whole area. Up here are some other permitted uses by right that are options that can go in there tomorrow without any community forums or without any input because they're zoned by right. We have to go through a zoning variance because we're not a named use for I3, and that's part of our process. Next slide. So we'll go through more specifics about our project. So we're located over here on the east side from downtown. Next slide. And then this is kind of interesting. This project actually technically sits in District 20, but it's right on the line for District 14. So we are not only meeting with District 14, but we're planning another meeting with District 20 and anyone else who wants to meet with us. Next slide. So this is a site history. You guys know it was the Ford Visteon site for manufacturing, and this is a more current. I borrowed this one, Vincent. Over here, the aerial that shows the site. And this is English on the left, and our proposed site is in that top quadrant. Next slide. This is just an overview to show, again, ours is in the northwest quadrant there below Pensy Trail. Next. Here is the site plan showing our first building, our phase 1 building, and we'll go to the next slide to zoom in a little bit. So what I'll point out about this building is that the building is in gray, and that kind of yellow ochre color to the left, that is our equipment yard, and that's where the generators would be housed. We have screening berms to the south and to the north in the green, and in terms of specs, the first building is 22 feet, 80,000 square feet, using 10 megawatts of critical utility and 6 generators. I will say that the customer commitment that we have for this site initially is for 40% of this building. So 40% of the interior and the mechanical electrical would be constructed first. Next slide. This is a picture of the outside of this same building that we built in Georgia, on the east side of Atlanta near Conyers. And this is an actual picture of the outside. And then we have one more, the next slide. And this is the other side, so you can see the generators. Those are 2. So John Wilson, how many will we have in day 1 for 4 megawatts?
Day 1 should be 3.
3. So we'll have 3 at the Indianapolis building instead of 2 initially. And it will grow to 6. Next slide. And this is phase 2. This shows a depiction of buildings 2 and 3. One of the things that I wanted to show is a continuation of the berm to the north, the screen against Pensy Trail. So that's what that green is. So we have kind of staggered berms and another one down here. And then the generator yards for buildings 2 and 3 are on the interior of those 2 buildings. These are two-story buildings, 190 square feet and 140,000 square feet, on the buildings 3 and buildings 2, respectively. And for these two-story buildings, they're less than 60 feet, and they're coming in at 56 feet. Next. This is a rendering from inside the park, actually looking at the first building, number 1, with its 6 generators and the berms on either side, and a berm toward the northwest. Next. Here's a picture of the site, the Thunderbird Commerce Center, formerly Ford Visteon. Monarch is already in operations, down on the bottom left. They're in the southwest corner of the site. There's a new manufacturing site that's under construction, which is on the southeast side. And then this is the actual site currently today. There's a lot of dirt and some trailers. And then what you see beyond that is substation. And here's a closer look of that substation that's adjacent to the property along Pensy Trail. That's one of the things that made this really attractive to us. Is people say, well, why Indianapolis, and why this site at Thunderbird Commerce Center? Zoned I-3, it's a brownfield, it's an opportunity for redevelopment, and it has access to substation power. And that substation is currently underutilized. I know we're going to talk about power rates in just a little bit, but the fact that we can come in and optimally utilize existing infrastructure that AES doesn't have to pay for allows them to provide more electricity and get more revenue without increased costs. So that can provide downward pressure on ratepayers. Next. This is Pensy Trail. This is a nature trail that borders the top area to the north of the site. This first one is, I took that picture looking east, and then this one is kind of tilted a little bit toward the substation. This one here is standing on Pensy Trail looking south at the project site itself. And what you see is, you can't even see Monarch today. There's a lot of vegetation that is currently there, and the berm would be on the other side of that, the 8-foot berm with vegetation. Here's some pictures of Pensy Trail. It does need some TLC. There's some vandalism. There's some burned out shopping carts and trash and things. And then I also wanted to not ignore, there is a nearby Irvington Community School that is right on the other side of Pensy Trail, toward the north, toward the residential. One of the things that DC Blocks has written in its commitments, which I think got updated this afternoon, is doing a Pensy Trail restoration and a maintenance plan. I think we said for 5 years out of the gate to maintain this property, because there's also some dead trees. These look pretty good, but there are some that are out there that are gone. And then in addition, we are partnering with local environmental groups to identify native plant species and native grasses to work with AES, because this is their easement, that vegetative area under the power lines, that's their easement. But they have said that they will allow us to work with the environmental groups to identify the species and replant that area in natural species of trees and grasses and wildflowers. So that's Pensy Trail, and we have the next one. This was a rendering. It's supposed to be a Pensy Trail, I think. And this is too much green in here, frankly, but the idea is to show the berm on the other side of that area to the south. And we've gotten some guidance from Marion County Soil and Water Conservation District on this project also. Next. One of our commitments, and I know we'll hear from John Hooker in just a little while, is to use union labor for construction of this project. We expect this, based on our prior experience in doing these in other markets, that this will take a couple of years for the first building, and then based on success, we'll move into buildings 2 and 3. Typically, that's going to be about 600 plus or minus workers at the peak of construction, a lot of electrical, a lot of carpentry, and so forth. One of the things that DC Blocks does differently than most data centers is we operate our data centers. We do not build them and turn them over to customers. We do not build them and then have a third party come in and operate them. We have DC Blocks employees run these data centers, and it is our intention that these will be Hoosiers that will be working in these facilities. These are good paying jobs. They don't require college education. They average $55 an hour. A lot of these positions, they come in, maybe they have a little bit of electrical experience, and there's on-the-job training where they become employees and develop their skills. One of the things about, I'll mention about DC Blocks in terms of operations is we really do not use extra resources from the community in terms of fire or police. There are not a lot of kids burdening the school system, and it's a very low traffic operation. Not like trucking where you've got 18-wheelers rolling in and out all day. We have, and this is in our plan of operations, we have low volume traffic of customers and deliveries that come in. And so we're not putting pressure on the roads, but as we'll talk about in a little bit, we do provide a lot of tax revenue that goes toward all of those things. Road improvements, police, if you're understaffed on police, and so forth. Next slide. So we hit on this a little bit. Zoned I-3, brownfield site, does require a variance. Warren Township Development Authority filed an automatic continuance, so that's going to put us into almost mid-June. And then last week, Indianapolis published its guardrails for data centers, and we spent the weekend reviewing that and ensuring that we are aligned with what, we're not bound to that because we've already filed, but we want to be sure that we're aligned with community expectations in that regard. One of the things that we're doing is to reduce the number of parking spaces. Currently, it's required to have 420 parking spaces. We don't need that many. And so we're requesting that it be reduced to 100 parking spaces so that we have 320 less spaces and less asphalt. Next slide. This is the kind of the meat of it. As far as power goes, this is a big concern that we hear a lot. And I can't stand up here and tell you that your power bill is not going to go up. In my experience, everything goes up. My gas has gone up. Coffee's more expensive than it used to be. Eggs are still going up. But what I can tell you is that we are doing things to protect ratepayers so that it's not going up because of our activities. So one of the DC Blocks commitments that we've made, which we're legally bound to, is to pay all the cost for utility upgrades required for our project, for distribution, for transmission, and for generation. AES has come out with their own statement. This was from September last year, where they said that they're committed to not having data centers cause consumers' rates to go up. But this was interesting. Up in the northeast corner of the state, Indiana and Michigan, I&M, actually did a study, and they said that our overall grid infrastructure is getting old. It needs to be upgraded. And where the data centers have come in and they have paid for that up front, and sometimes it's tens of millions of dollars or more. We've written checks, Mark knows. We write a check for a substation, it's $52 to $80 million up front before construction starts. But up at I&M, they said that they actually, in the bottom sentence, it says This rate decrease is made possible by the load growth and increased revenue and is experiencing from large customers due to data centers. So if data centers will pay for that infrastructure for the grid that needs to be upgraded, then that cost doesn't go to ratepayers. Again, your cost per kW may go up. I can't tell you that it won't. I expect mine will where I live. But it should not be from data centers, and we've got a lot of protections that are in place with AES and with our legal commitments. Next slide. Water use. This one's probably the most popular one that I see on Instagram, where they talk about water use, and a lot of that is evaporative cooling. We don't do that. This project does not use evaporative cooling. That does use millions of gallons of water. We don't do that. In fact, our first building is not going to use a closed loop system. It's going to use DX waterless cooling. So that uses refrigerant. So that's the same cooling that they use if you go to Walmart or Target. It's the same as a regular commercial building. We don't have a big load. It doesn't require heavy-duty cooling. It's just a regular kind of commercial system. The next one for building 2 and 3 is a closed loop system that contains propylene glycol. And once you fill that up, and I'm going to let our guys tell you how they fill it up and how do they maintain it and all that, because I know that there are questions about that. But you don't continue to use the water. It recycles in the system and it's just treated. So for the 35 employees at our facility, they use about the same amount of water as 11 households in your community, and no more than that. It's about 22 gallons per day, but again, that's for the entire site at max capacity. Next, emissions. We've committed to only running generators for testing during daytime hours, not at dinner time or after, and not on weekends, and not on holidays. We comply with federal and state emissions standards. For this, we're working closely with IDEM, which has to issue air permits for us to operate. And again, we have done the studies to show that we generate far less diesel emissions than alternatives which could go into this site tomorrow. Next. The on-site fuel is what we call belly tanks. They go underneath the generators. Those are double hulled. They have leak detection. They sit on concrete pads. We have never, in my experience at DC Blocks or DC Blocks' history, had spills or issues with our diesel tanks. The batteries that we use are used for transitioning power from utility to generators. So it's generally going to be 10 to 12 seconds. Those have a useful life of about 10 to 12 years. And when they are at their end of their useful life, our manufacturer comes in, removes them, replaces them, transfers them off, and takes them to recycle facilities. Noise. Data centers are normally extremely, extremely quiet. Less than 65 decibels. People say, well, what is that? I think it's kind of like a lawnmower that's way off away, but somebody else told me it's more like the equivalent of a washing machine. So that's what's going on with it. But I will tell you, the vast majority of the time, it is very, very quiet, and we're good neighbors. Next. I made my wife drive over to go take this picture at nighttime. This is our Birmingham facility. Just to show a day and night comparison, we use down-facing lights so it doesn't create glare for the community. And I took a video, and I'll show it to anybody who wants to see it later. And she's like, you got to show the video. because you can hear the birds chirping, and it's really lovely. But that's what it's normally like. Next. I know you guys are just getting to know me. Before I talk about value to the community, though, on all those issues that we just talked about, I would invite you to come and visit us. We have 2 data centers that I think are really representative of what DC Blocks does. The picture that I showed you earlier, that's the same design as the Building 1 for Indianapolis. We just completed that building, and it's in operation. We completed it in December, and it's in operation, and that's in Conyers, Georgia. So Atlanta's a pretty easy flight. If you want a little bit more of a road trip, you can just get on 65 and drive to my house, which is 7 hours away on I-65. But we have the Birmingham, Alabama facility, which has been in operation. We built it in 2018 in a community that's very similar to yours. And if you want to talk to people who live near us, who are community leaders in that community, we can make that happen. And you're very welcome to come and see our data center with your own eyes and your own ears. And I think you'll have a very different experience than what you've been seeing on social media. Getting into making something mutually beneficial, where it's a symbiotic relationship, I think the biggest impact is, frankly, a financial one. In terms of how DC Blocks can contribute, and this is bigger than this community. It helps the state of Indiana, it helps Marion County, it helps Indianapolis, but it also helps District 14, and it also will help District 20. In terms of personal property tax, over here on the right, these red bullets, these are all recipients of tax revenues from this project, including the health and hospital systems, the city, the county, fire, police, transportation, sanitation, the township schools, Warren County, for example, Marion County's at the top. That's a list. I'm not going to go into great detail, but there is a special program called a TIF. Are you familiar with a TIF? Okay, you guys get it. So this is a 10-year program. I think we're about 3 years into it. And that money, and District 14 is the recipient of the TIF for this development. It goes to improve Ellenberger Park, Circle Park, these areas, your roads. There is also at least a 5% inclusivity payment, and we are working with Indy Economic Development, Inc. On this, but what I can tell you, and we don't have the numbers yet, and I don't want to show something and then somebody say, well, you guys didn't tell us because it changed, but we're having to work through it with them, and they're putting together new guidelines for data centers. So please be patient with us on that, and we'll update you as we have more information. But what I will tell you is that the level of investment that it takes for a data center project to come in will generate somewhere between 5 and 7 times what a similar development or what a different development would be at that same site. So if you were doing distribution or truck parking, it's about a 5 to 7x revenue to the community and to the area. Next. This one I'll just hit on lightly, but technology is one of the top growth sectors in the U.S. economy. While I know everybody is not excited about data centers, it truly is. I work at a data center every day when I'm not traveling. It truly is a part of our fabric and in our lives. And I see this as a way to extend technology into an area where it hasn't existed before, to allow the community to participate in this high growth sector of our U.S. economy. The jobs that we have, where's Andrew? Like Joseph, I mean, what did he come in starting doing? Electrical? Facility engineer. So, but, he's gotten experience in cabling and fiber optics. And that's all just because he's in it. And we were joking earlier, our job descriptions are kind of silly because we're always asked to do new things. And so, this guy who came in as a low-level employee to start has gotten more and more experience so that he does understand the technology and he's involved with it. So it's just an opportunity for growth in this area. Next slide. And the last one I wanted to leave you with is we really do care about engaging with the community. This is part of our DNA at DC Block. We've been doing this since the beginning. In addition to the TIF, in addition to the inclusion payments, which will provide tax revenue to the area, DC Blocks wants to understand how we can make commitments and direct investments into the community. We talked earlier about the trail stewardship for Pincy and for the wildflower program. How am I doing on time? Did I blow it up? Okay. That's what I have. So I want to thank you guys again for having me and for listening to some of this information. What I will say and what I'll leave you with is this is not a one and done. We're going to have more community forums. We're going to have more community meetings. And if you're not getting what you want out of those, all of us will make ourselves available to you to answer those questions. So thank you. And I think Vincent Ash, you want to come up and say a word on Thunderbird Conference Center? There are a few more slides after this one for Vincent. Go to the next slide.
Awesome. I'll be brief, get to everybody's questions and comments, but was getting a lot of questions from the community regarding development that is already going on within the business park, which we call Thunderbird. And so wanted to at least just briefly kind of answer those. Again, my name is Vincent Ash, work with Loft Development. We are a local developer here in the Indianapolis area. And have done a number of industrial multifamily developments throughout Indianapolis and central Indiana. This is Thunderbird Commerce Center. What you see now is actually a rendering of our first manufacturing building that we're building just north of English Avenue. Go to the next slide, please. And just kind of want to be, we purchased a property a few years ago. With that, did a catalyst project with Monarch Beverage. So we built that facility. I believe in their filing with the city that they were planning on retaining about 480 jobs in that facility. So that's near 500. We also currently, the two buildings that are under construction is Building 1, again, which is just north of English Avenue, and ABF Freight, which is a truck transload facility that is currently under construction now. Both are set to be completed here within the next couple months. Cool thing about the first spec building that we put that up without any user really being identified, and we landed a advanced manufacturer that actually makes dentures. And so it is more of a startup company, but they plan to hire 100 employees over the next year with the goal to get up to 500 employees over the next few years. So just in Monarch and that first building alone, we're at nearly 1,000 employees, really just trying to be a employment hub that used to be there with the old Ford site. We still have plans to build 2 more buildings and have significant interest on those. And of course, DC Blocks mentioned the site that they are looking at to build their facility on as well. So, we're really trying to do our due diligence, build a very comprehensive park. One, trying to balance the number of users as far as number of jobs, as well as truck traffic. It's a somewhat of a puzzle and a formula trying to get it right. But again, we totally expect this development to generate a significant amount of employment, and just now we are already over 1,000 jobs committed to the site and development as a whole. Next slide, please. Here is actually renderings of the Monarch beverage facility, or actual pictures. And so as you can see, we build very quality facilities. Monarch actually has 40,000 square feet of office in that facility as well. Don't need to rehash a lot, but as you know, as a former brownfield, we worked with Ford as they sold the site, as well as the city and the state's brownfield program, and received a comfort letter to move forward with all these developments. As a part of the comfort letter, there are restrictions. Part of that is residency, so there's no housing allowed. As I mentioned, it is zoned I-3, which allows for a lot of different uses. I mentioned the truck transload facility was a by right use. Again, it's under construction, but there's also a lot of other uses that can move forward. That's probably a lot more egregious on the environment than what a data center would be. And we mentioned the TIF. I just wanted to state that that was proactively put in by the city of Indianapolis and your counselor and former counselor, so kudos to them on being very strategic in a way to capture investment and reinvest it into the Irvington community. Loft has not benefited financially at all regarding the TIF, so every investment that we have is really just captured and being able to be redistributed to the broader community. We actually put $15 million of infrastructure in when we first purchased the property, and got no support from the city, or not even asked the city to support any of that. So we're trying to be very good stewards and community members as well, by building quality facilities, but also, like I said, just create opportunities for the residents as well. Next slide, I believe, is just another aerial, as well as our rendering of our first building. And from there, I believe that's it, and I'll allow Councilor Nilsson to take over.
Okay, thank you, Vincent. Thank you, David. Okay, so we're a little over our schedule. We're going to still be on time. So now we're going to go into, we've had volunteers who've been aggregating some questions based on what people were asking. Kelby's going to keep me honest to getting to public forum at 7:30. I'll read some names off. Folks will come stand up. We have an opportunity to speak. If there's some time at the end, other folks who didn't sign up want to come up and say something, they can, or we can ask some additional questions. So if your question has not been read, it's not that we haven't seen it. We're just trying to get some overarching questions answered. So the first question was in relation to noise levels. So are you committing to a permanent 65 decibel cap at the property line even after the build out of buildings 2 and 3? And then another question, a couple questions that related to committing to not testing during school hours. So I don't know who wants to answer this for you all, but.
No, the 65 dB will be the maximum, and that's measured with all of the generators running. So if there was a utility outage and all was running, that would still be applied at the property line.
Stand next to you. So understanding that you may be seeking tax abatement or incentives, do you plan on pursuing the project if you do not receive a tax abatement?
This is a tricky answer. I wasn't prepared for this one, but the answer is yes. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. In this industry that's moving at historically unprecedented speeds, how can you know that the commitments you make today will be sustainable for you and reliable for the community in the future?
Well, this is a long-term plan. This isn't a one and done. We come in and we build something, we take the money, we get out of town. We're gonna be here. This is a multi-year project. This is going to be in excess of $1 billion, just what DC Blocks is going to put in. Our customers will put in more. So this is going to take some time. And for the last 10 years, we've been participants in the communities that we live in these communities. We operate. We're well thought of. We honor our commitments. We do what we say we're going to do, when we said we're going to do them, for how much we said we're going to do them for, and we keep doing that. That's our MO. So we listen, and we're members of the community.
Okay, a couple of technical questions. With a closed loop, I know we talked about the closed loop cooling system. How often, maybe remind viewers and audience members, of how often the water will be changed, but also how often will the coolant need to be changed, and how will that waste be disposed? I think that was in the Q&A as well that we sent out, but can someone answer that, please? Sorry, I butchered that a little bit. Yep.
Good evening, y'all. I'm the Director of Operations for DC Blocks. The closed loop system typically does not get flushed. In the event we do have to do any kind of maintenance to it, we will dispose of any of the byproduct per item's specifications. But once we fill it, and then as we add to it, as expansion is shown, none of the water will be pushed out into storm drains or nearby streams or anything like that. Additionally, we have, it was mentioned again, the liquid that's in it. It's mostly water with a little bit of glycol in it. The glycol is to prevent freezing, and we all have experienced freezing pipes. I had one that flooded my upstairs son's bedroom. This is to prevent that freezing, to prevent exposure to the community. However, with all that said, if something does happen, we're right on top of it. We have an advanced leak detection system that goes along with it. In addition to monitoring all of this 24/7, 365. We get alerts before the people on site would actually know what's going on. So with the disposal, again, per IDEM and EPA standards, and then the liquid that's in it, it goes inert with between 24 hours and 2 weeks if it does hit the earth.
Okay, so what protections will prevent contaminated dust or runoff from reaching the trail and surrounding neighborhoods, and will you commit to keeping the trail open and safe throughout? And I think this has to do with probably construction, but let's say it applies going forward as a partner as well.
So I'll take that. I'm Michael Clark, the SVP of Construction. So before we disturb a bit of dirt on the site, we have to go get the entirety of the development permitted. And so as part of that permit process, we have to submit drawings that show where we put silt fencing, how we control wastewater, how we control storm runoff, all that kind of stuff. So there's a pretty intense permitting process that the city has to review and approve before we really do anything on site and really disturb it. So that's all public record. That's all stuff that you all can look at and access. So it's all very publicly available information. And we have to do all of our due diligence, and then the city also has the right to come and inspect, so we have to maintain that during the entirety of the construction process. And right now, there's no reason we would even be close to the Penzie Trail, so I don't think we should necessarily worry about anything bleeding over into there either. But we're going to have that vegetative buffer between our site and the trail that will be maintained as well.
All right, thank you. So we're going to now move over to public forum. So I know a few of you signed up. Again, everyone's going to have a minute and a half. After we get through the listed folks who did sign up, we'll ask folks to politely come to the front, share any thoughts or questions. If you ask a question, we're going to give people the opportunity to answer. If you'd just like to say something, you obviously are welcome to do so. So the first three people up are William Moser, Charles Platts, and I'm going to butcher this name. Is it Raven Davis? Karen. Oh, Karen. I couldn't read your handwriting. Sorry about that. Okay, so if those first three want to come up and say what they like to say. Again, Kelby will be keeping us honest to the minute and a half. And if we happen to run through that and there's time at the end, we'll have plenty of opportunity for community members to speak directly with DC Blocks as well. So, Kelby, want to get us started?
My question is concerning the tax abatement that you may be seeking and probably will. I'm a transplant from the west side where we had the United Center get built with bonds that landed on the residents in Wayne Township and a couple other surrounding communities. United Center bailed out, didn't fulfill any of their job expectations, and the community was left with a quite massive tax bill to pay for 12 years that affected our property taxes. Personally, I know this building is going to get built. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a courtesy for you guys to be here, and I appreciate that. But I think you should pay your fair share of taxes, just like every small business in the community pays taxes. From the day they open their door, they pay a full load of taxes. I think you people should also pay your full load of taxes. It would help us as homeowners in the community because maybe the referendum additions to our property taxes would go down if community businesses like you and or Monarch paid a full share of taxes the first year they opened their doors. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. I actually just want to talk to all the people here. They're going to tell you whatever they can to get this thing built, right? So I'm talking to you guys. I can't speak to the health impacts. I can't speak to the environmental impacts. That's not my area of expertise, but I am a professional musician. If you've been to the Snug, you might have seen me play there, or at the Irving. I live just down the street with my 2 daughters and my wife. And I can say that sound is cumulative. So 65 decibels, what's 65 decibels? What is that number? A trumpet. I said, Andy, can I bring a trumpet today? He said, no, Charles, come on. Why? Because a trumpet would be disruptive. It would not allow people to talk. It would not allow people to think. And you only need one reason for this thing to not get built, and that's because it's right next to a school. So if there's one child in there that is hypersensitive or has a hard time focusing and they get a bad education, early childhood education, it's on these cats. And where are they going to be? In their plane, flying away from here. Yeah. If you ride a plane, which I don't, so I can't take a plane ride to come hang out with you. If you ride in a plane, 65 to 75 decibels, louder back by the engines where I sit. So when they're flying away, we're going to be stuck sitting by the engines. Thank you, everybody.
Sorry, I have a question for you. So, in the Q&A, I read that 14-page PDF today. Somebody asked about the risk of contamination toxins in the wastewater for the surrounding areas in the community. And your answer was that the risks are very minimal, that the systems are highly monitored for wastewater leaks, and you talked about it costs millions of dollars. I don't care about the dollars. What I care about, have you had any such leaks at your other data center locations, and how were they mitigated, if so? You mentioned that propylene glycol is safe in small amounts, but high exposure can cause skin irritation, and very high doses can be toxic to individuals with renal and hepatic, which is the kidneys and the liver. So my question is, would you personally want to live close to one of your data centers, knowing the risks, especially if you were older or had compromised organs? Beyond the environmental impacts, what are the potential health risks to neighbors, the temporary construction employees, and the permanent employees?
What we have in our cooling systems is largely water and propylene glycol. How many have automobiles that they put the blue stuff in their tanks every day? You guys have, we have winters. We have winters in Atlanta too, and we have to use that. We use that regularly. When it empties, we fill it up, we splash it on our windows. It is not toxic, it is not contaminant. I wouldn't want to drink it, but it doesn't affect us. We have to contain anything that we possibly spill. We have to contain it. We have to dispose of that, and that's the only toxin we have other than diesel fuel, which is again highly contained. It's in tanks everywhere. Our automobiles, our homes, our trucks. We don't do anything different than. And Mark, that we have not had any leaks in the history of DC Blocks. Yes.
Okay, so the next three we had signed up were Rachel Burke, Marie Hitsey, and John Hooker, and then we'll be able to move on to public testimony. Yep, thank you.
Hi, I'm Rachel Burke. I'm with the MSD of Warren Township School Board. I want to thank you for coming out tonight and thank Councilor Nielsen, sorry about that, I know better, for hosting this. I work in education advocacy, and with education advocacy, particularly here in Indiana, we see this happen a lot. This is the camel's nose inside the tent. You say that the first building will only be used for networking. Cool. But then you specifically call out that the second and third buildings which are twice and 2.5 times the capacity of the first building, will be used, quote, based on customer interest and demand. We all know what that customer interest and demand are going to be, particularly in 2 and 4 years. We know what the need for computing is going to be in that time, and it's going to be high density computing. You even say so in what you have put out. So selling it as building one that only uses this much energy and only uses this type of cooling and on and on and on is not being realistic to what we can expect from buildings 2 and 3, buildings that are significantly larger than building 1 and that will have significantly greater impact than building 1. Also, you keep discussing IDEM standards for air and water. Those have been cut so badly, even in this last legislative session, as to be non-existent. Thank you.
Yeah, well, let me just address the buildings. I think David showed some statistics up there in terms of building 1, which we know about, building 2 and 3. I'm sorry, David showed statistics for building 1, which we know about. We have a customer for that. Buildings 2 and 3, we don't. But we do know it's going to be used for computing, and it will be used for higher density computing. That's why the liquid cooling comes in. We also took the approach here that we wanted to tell the community about everything we knew. We didn't want to come in here and just say, we're building building 1, this is all we have, the rest is going to be a green field, and we're going to go home. We're going to come back in 2 years and the bait and switch, right? That's not who we are, that's not how we operate. So we wanted to tell you what our plan was, we wanted to tell you why we're doing this the way we're doing it, and yes, we do expect that other computer users are going to go into that building. We're highly confident of that given our society and given the needs. So that's.
So I'm Marie Hitze, and my questions, we've heard all the concerns about the environmental factors. However, we keep seeing more and more reports coming out from across the country and across the world indicating that cancer clusters are common, that we're having, polluted groundwater, and where Amazon just settled a $20.5 million settlement with a community. But this is next to a school, and we've already had youth cancer clusters in Indiana that they have identified next to other brownfields. Are you going to do anything to, one, mitigate or prepare or change it so that you're improving it before you build? Are you going to build to standards where you are putting in solar panels to produce your own energy rather than using the energy that we're going to end up paying for in some way? Or are you going to do any other kind of clean energy initiatives in place of that to try to keep the harm down from our kids? The one report that came out about 2 weeks ago was that for 6 miles away from a data center, the ambient temperature around it increases by 10 degrees. The data doesn't lie. So what are you going to do? Are you going to build thicker walls? What are you going to do to ensure that we as a community and our kids are safe?
Yeah. I mean, the walls that we built in these things are 10-inch insulated precast. They're going to be the purpose is to contain the heat, to contain the environmentals. Data centers pride themselves, they operate on efficiency, right? And if we were to change the the temperature has been quoted. I've seen some of those reports, and those are not true. Those are absolutely false.
Okay. Ready? Hello, my name is John Hooker. I'm the proud president of the Central Indiana Building and Construction Trades Council, representing 35,000 men and women of Central Indiana who make up the union construction industry. For decades, the old Ford site was the powerhouse of industrial jobs. Today, the DC Blocks project offers a $2 billion opportunity to restore some of that legacy. This isn't just about a building, it's about the 600 union construction jobs that come along with it, required to build it. For us, for my members, these jobs offer dignity, health care, pension benefits, family-sustaining wages that keep us here and keep our local economy strong. A project this complex demands the precision that only union-trained craftsmen and women can provide. By approving this site, you are directly investing into our joint apprenticeships. You are ensuring that local residents can enter a debt-free education system and graduate into the middle class. When this project is union built, it means it is built safely, it is built on schedule, it is built by people who live right here in Central Indiana. Our contractors and my members are ready and willing to build another data center. Thank you.
Okay, so that's actually everyone who has signed up. So now's an opportunity if anyone here would like to come testify. Maybe we could just do 5 or 6 at a time, just to be safe, be good neighbors. Again, minute and a half apiece, please. If you ask a question, we'll of course let DC Blocks have the opportunity to answer, but so far so good. We will be stopping at the hour mark, so when we get to close to that, I will come in and end things and give some closing remarks and next steps, and we'll go from there. So please.
David, how close do you live to a data center?
12 miles.
He said 12 miles. Have there been non-disclosure agreements related to this project, and if so, who has signed them?
No, there have been no non-disclosure agreements that we've signed with anyone as a result of this project. We don't do that.
I live straight down the street from where you guys are building, and if you've noticed, there's a racetrack. Step closer. There's a racetrack that on the weekends probably is more than 65 decibels. But when you guys are running 16 to 18 generators, are you telling me it's only going to be 65?
Yes.
And right now, our electricity goes out on a regular basis, so.
Yeah, so for emergency generators, I wish we could go back to the pictures there. But typically, keep going back a few. So you buy them with a sound attenuation, go back to that, there we go, an enclosure on these that actually deadens the sound around them. So typically when they're running, you'll know they're running because they run kind of at a low hum, but it doesn't sound as loud as like a diesel engine that you would hear from a truck or from somebody with straight pipes on their pickup truck or anything like that. So it's not like you're walking up to it having to wear ear protection, right? I've walked up to these before, larger ones that are running, and you don't know they're running until you put your hand on them and you feel the vibration. So the study that we have to perform is a study where they go around to the property line, they take ambient level noise readings, and then they do calculations that say, okay, when all the generators are running, and it's more than the 18, it's 18 plus 14 plus 6, so that's, whatever that is, 30.
Yeah, math is hard for me on a Monday.
So it's a lot more than 18. The point is, at the property line, we've committed that 65 dB will be the maximum sound when they're all running full bore. So to answer your question, yes, and you can buy packages that make them much, much quieter than
Okay,
a full.
because I am concerned about the kids at that school. 2 of my daughters are on the spectrum, and they're having children, and we're expecting them to test the same. Sure. And that's going to be,
Yeah. And I have kids too, right? I've got 2 little boys.
How close to the data center do you live?
Well, we live in Atlanta where there's always noise, right? There's always stuff going on. So, I mean,
Thank you.
While your project will inevitably ask for 20 years tax rebates, which would be on a parity with what the Metroblocks project up the street has requested, but the residents are only guaranteed increased heat signature, increased carbon particulates, and noise pollution, while our property values go down, which has been proven around data centers. What actual benefit can you give us in the short and the long run?
Data centers represent about the most intense capital investment per square foot that's known. And those benefits, data centers, first off, are a long-term investment. Contracts are typically signed between 15 and 20 years with renewals. So while we hope to get an equitable treatment on tax abatements, the amount of economic value will far surpass what we get in abatements. And those are all available numbers. Once calculated, once we get our proposal, we can share those. Those will become public, and those will pay to the community for years. It's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving. The investment doesn't depreciate on the personal property because all the personal property keeps getting refreshed every 2 to 3 years, and that cycle's coming down. In other words, computers are being replaced more frequently, so that investment stays high for as long as you can kind of foresee. So while we get some initial abatement, and that abatement de-escalates over time, we'll be paying full share, full bore for years to come.
Hello, I'm Miss Hungry Caterpillar, also known as Jay Keller, and I am the daughter of an IT guy at Polaris who is very high up in the company, and I am a computer science major at Butler. So, the thing is, what I know about power production from everything I've learned from my father and from my fairly limited amount of experience with computer science is that this is going to put a lot of strain on the power grid. So, question, how are you going to keep this from straining the power grid? Even outside of diesel generators, Indianapolis is an area largely run on fossil fuels, coal, like crude oil, things like that. How are you going to stop the effects of that from hurting our community?
We can say with surety that we know the energy picture is changing, right? We know that increasing amounts of solar, increasing amounts of natural gas, and eventually nuclear energy is going to be there to take up the slack. We know that. Those projections, they're almost unarguable. So we know in all the areas where we operate, the public service commissions have been getting an earful, and they've kind of enacted regulations, they've enacted policies about the data centers paying their fair share for generation, for transmission, and for distribution, meaning the substations on our properties. So we are increasingly being asked, and the data center industry is stepping up and saying, we will pay our share of costs. And by paying that share of cost, by overbuilding the transmission, increasing the transmission grids that have been depreciating, that have been deteriorating for years, data centers are actually being proven to be a benefit to the community and to the electric grids for its resiliency and its redundancy, for what we're going to need in the future, because we are using increasing amounts of energy. That's not going that's not going the opposite direction anytime soon. I think we all understand that.
one last thing to all of you. These guys can say as much tech buzzwords as they want. This is going to make the community worse. I went to ICES in 4th and 5th grade. I was there. Let me tell you something. There are so many poor and disenfranchised kids that live that go to that school. Black kids, queer kids, Mexicans, and all of them live here because this is a historically repressed place. This will make it worse. Do not let them fool you.
Counselor, I want to thank you for putting this on. Hi, my name is Taylor. I work at the Mayor's Action Center, actually, which is the middleman of the city. I am a representative of the city of Indianapolis nor the Mayor's Action Center, but I do want to say the amount of phone calls from disgusted residents, including myself, I'm sorry, I am just so pissed off. The amount of calls that I have to take every single day about residents being upset that that you guys, you people, are coming in here into our poor communities and polluting the place right next to a school, a fucking trail. And yes, I know I'm in a church. I am in a church, but it's serious. That's how pissed off I am. I don't appreciate your manipulative way of speaking to us, bringing up your kids, get on a flight. I'm poor. I don't have money. You think I can just get on a flight? I live right, and I know it's my time. I live in that neighborhood right next to that. And I'm also a union worker too, and I stand with my brothers and sisters, but I do not appreciate the manipulative language using union labor for this. It's sickening. It's sickening. Please fight against this. This is gross. Every single one of you are disgusting, and yes, it is personal, because it's personal to me. What you guys are doing right now, this is modern redlining. This is what's happening to us. It's disgusting. Thank you, counselor. Thank you, guys.
My name is Gaynell Collier-Magar. I've been a resident of Irvington for well over 30 years. And I have a lot of concerns about this. I want to know specifically, what are the terms of the tax abatement that you're seeking? I want to know where the heat goes from this. You can do recycled water, but the heat that's extracted has to go somewhere. And I'm really concerned about heat pollution, because when that kind of a heat is emitted, there's necessarily a heat dome, which means we're going to lose rain. That's going to have big environmental consequences. We already have it in Indianapolis, a heat dome. And then I would like to also know, who are the stakeholders that are going to benefit from this? Who are the stakeholders?
I mean, our stakeholders are sitting in this room. Our stakeholders are private equity companies, our stakeholders are banks, our stakeholders are financial investors in everything we do in society. Our employees, 140 employees.
Is that published somewhere? How do we know who are the banks that are invested, the private equity firms that are invested?
We publish all of that on our website. We publish the banks that we seek loans from. We publish our majority backers. Those are all found on our website, ma'am.
And what about the heat abatement?
I'm sorry, say again?
The heat abatement.
Well, heat abatement is it's physics, right? So,
yeah,
chillers on the roof expel heat from pipes.
Correct.
So there is heat that is evaporating. That's a fact. The issue, what I was taking issue with before was this concept of a heat dome that would change surrounding areas by over 10 degrees. That's not good science, and I'd love to see the source of that, but that's not good science, ma'am.
My daughter lives in Conyers, Georgia. You can bet I'll be asking her about this.
Okay.
To do some research. And what about the tax abatement? The specifics on the tax abatement that you're seeking?
Those are being worked out right now, and we expect within a couple of weeks they're going to have an offer to us because they're going through some consistency with other data centers, with other like industries, and we expect to see that.
So it's in the hands of the city at this point?
It's in the hands of the city, yes.
What are you seeking?
We are seeking the same that any other data center use would, any other
That
data center
tells
user
me
would
nothing.
be. I'm sorry? Well, first off, we haven't asked for anything. We've met with the economic development folks, and they are working up a plan for us. Yeah.
In parity with other developments. Metroblox has asked for 20 years abatement.
Yeah. Okay.
That's $4,000 a month abatement. That's millions of dollars over the course of the years that will be stopped to the community.
Ma'am, all I can say is the net benefit after abatements are far enough. We will pay millions and millions. No,
Let's
we
let
will
him
pay
finish.
millions
Let's
of
let him
dollars.
finish, please. I'm just coming in to check in real quick. We have 20 more minutes left in forum. So everyone take just a deep breath. We have a lot of questions that want to be asked. We want DC Blocks to be able to answer them. Understand it's frustrated. If you'd like to get back in line and ask another question, I would encourage you to do so. Okay, so let's do a little time check. Everyone take a deep breath. We're doing great. We good, Kelby? Let's do it.
Hello, everyone. My name's Avery. I'm a IT professional. I work with databases day in, day out, every single day. I work with databases all the time, so this type of thing isn't a surprise to me. My concern is the lack of specificity on buildings 2 and 3 when it comes to the usage of water. My evaporative cooling is extremely wasteful and very harmful to the environment. And I would like reassurance from DC Block that evaporative cooling will not be used and that there will not be an excess consumption of water for those 2 extra buildings.
We will not use evaporative cooling on that piece of property ever. We've committed to that. We will continue to commit to that. Everything we do will be a closed loop system. Period. We've never done evaporative cooling in our existence. Everything has been closed loop from day one. Again, it's on our website. That's subject to verification. That's just how we operate.
Okay.
And it's a recorded commitment.
Okay. Thank you.
I can adjust it, thank you. Sorry. My name is Sarah Keller. I live over on East 12th Street proudly. Just moved there, spent $255,000 of my hard-earned money to do it, part of which was a down payment that I earned from getting nearly killed in a car wreck from a man who also lived on the east side, who was on heroin, hit me head on, in a sense of connection I feel of not to perpetuate any sort of negativism toward poverty or anything, but unfortunately, this man was in poverty on drugs. There is a correlation, sir, of neighborhoods increasing their poverty level by 20% within the range of data centers. This is a national statistic. It's not just specifically to Georgia, it's talking on a national level. How are you going to guarantee in my beautiful neighborhood, Rumford Eastway, that then the property value is not going to decrease, or the poverty value will increase by 20%. How is this guaranteed? Because God forbid somebody else gets hit by another person due to poverty, due to feeling sorry for themselves, doing drugs, and nearly dying. And then that would be on you guys. Quite the heavy thing to take in. And sorry, I will take just one more time, just a little bit. PFAs, can we talk about that? Can we talk about PFAs? I just really want to know what, like, this is just a question. What is your understanding of the PFAs and how it's going to affect our environment here, especially people with asthma, lung cancer like me, etc.? Please, I would love that answered.
Counselor, that's something we will get back, we will answer that, we will research and answer and get back to you on that, not on the PFAs, correct, yeah.
Hello, thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Counselor, for setting all this up and everything. Thanks for the church. I had a question about sort of the future terms. You've made the commitment to do a closed loop system, but anyone who's following any news about high density computing, AI, that sort of thing, knows that it's changing almost daily, it feels like. Do you know if you'll be financially stable to not have 2 and 3 if by chance next year's chips need evaporative cooling because it doesn't work, or chips 3 years down the line, or chips 18 years into your abatement and that sort of thing? I think a lot of the ire you're receiving is collected because this city has felt like it's been chopped up by all of the data centers coming in and people trying to just kind of grab after all of the collapse that we've suffered. And we want to make sure that if you are going to be here and we don't have an option about it, you actually stay. So how do you financially commit to that? Are you able to just be a, medical records keeping data center or something along those lines? Or do you actually have to have AI for this to be solvent?
No, we don't have AI in any of our centers to this point, right? So this is a fairly new phenomenon. So we've been operating for 10 years with our customers are banks, insurance companies, law offices, municipalities, schools, universities, and the like. So that will continue. All of those companies will eventually also need AI. Our technologists keep up on where chip technology is going. We're committing to closed-loop cooling, and we believe for the foreseeable future that anybody can look out in terms of projecting what the next 5 generations of chipsets are going to be. Right? There's some physical principles. I mean, they can't get too hot to melt. So within the realm of what we know today, and I'm not a scientist, we're committing in writing that we will only use closed-loop cooling on that property, and that's, we're not planning, forecasting, looking, researching any other types of technology. We're comfortable with this. This is responsible. We're sticking to it.
So the answer would be that if you guys fall by the wayside, say that cooling doesn't work in 10 years because the nicest chips that the hyperscalers want to use can't go into them, you have a financial ability to maintain this instead of just pulling up stakes and leave it.
I believe so. I think we have a pretty solid, base, a pretty solid, revenue stream, pretty solid reputation, and I believe we're gonna sustain and evolve as the industry evolves. Right? We've been particularly pleased with that, and we've been pleased with how we've operated. We've responded to challenges. We've responded to technology, and we'll continue to do that. I mean, our crystal balls get a little cloudy at times, right? We can't fully predict the future, but from everything we know, and we talk to a lot of people who do study this and do keep up on this, we think we're pretty comfortable that we're in a zone that's going to keep us in this vein for quite some time. I wouldn't even be able to venture what the next generation of science and where that's going to lead us. That's beyond me.
Thank you.
By the way, you didn't talk about the PFAs
we're not prepared to discuss it. I spoke to the counselor and said we will research that and get an answer back to their office.
Yeah, so any questions that have not been answered, and I'll say this at the end, there will be we'll collect those questions, they will be sent to the developer, and I will release those through the channels which everyone has been aware of everything to date. So just to answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Downey, for hosting this, and thank you, DC Blocks, for coming out to answer our questions. There's a lot of attention about data centers that are drawn to the physical aspects of it, like the energy and the water. And I think this meeting has been dominated by a lot of that. But I would encourage everyone who's here to look more into what data centers are actually used for. And this is like where my biggest concern is who your clients are and what data is actually going to be stored in this data center. Because presumably if it's located in our neighborhood, the data on it's going to be data that's about and produced by us, residents of this neighborhood. And so the two big ones that I'm concerned about that I'd like to hear who your guys' clients are is government clients, and how do you ensure that your government clients are protecting people's privacy and constitutional rights and not using these data centers to surveil residents of this neighborhood by the federal government. And then also other people have talked about mental health and ADHD, and it's the content that's stored on these data centers that gets kids addicted. This is like what I would want to know about the private clients is, do you guys host any clients that use engagement maximizing algorithms linked to attention problems and mental health harms in children, or is tenant selection just purely commercial? Thank you.
We don't have any visibility into any data that our customers store in our data center, and that's by contract, that's by law. We can't, we deal with, I'm sorry? Well, we provide the environment for them to put their data, put their data in our data center, but we can't see that data. We deal with, all the customers we deal with are tax-paying, registered entities. They have to fill out forms that they have to be legal entities, right? But beyond that, we can't see what they do. We can't intrude on what they do. We can't pierce what they do.
So just to be clear, do you or don't you contract with the federal government to store data in your data centers? And do you store, do you contract out to companies that produce content, like companies like YouTube or other content companies that create addictive content? That's all I want to know is, like, do you contract with those types of companies to store information in your data centers?
We contract with all of the users and stores of data, legitimate users and stores of data, hospitals, universities, and the like. Right? We don't discriminate on who we cash for. And we have no federal contracts at this point.
Release the data to another entity if they ask for it.
Sorry?
We don't have access to it. We don't have access to that data. He said, would we release the data to a law enforcement? We can't. We don't have access.
It's not our data to release. That would be up to the customer. We wouldn't respond in that.
I'm a lifelong East Sider, and I went to the school that you're trying to build this monstrosity next to. This is my home. I know that all of my neighbors, hopefully majority of my neighbors, don't want this built. And they don't appreciate the bribery that you're trying to buy our city by buying our police department, buying our health departments. You saw the list. You're looking at me like you didn't see a list of tax incentives that you're giving our, do I need to pull it up? You're looking like you don't understand what I'm saying.
Taking our Randsburg.
There's no amount of tax breaks that you could give our city that would allow this to be built in any moral person's heart right next to a school. I would ask why you've chosen our slice of heaven to turn into hell, but you've answered that many times over, and I don't want to give you guys more chances to talk yourselves up and word salad your way into people's hearts. That's not fair. You have mentioned that there will be many public forums about this. State their dates and locations, please, so that anyone in this room or on our stream can come to them and face their opposition. Is that a question for you? Or is that a question for them?
I proactively worked with community leaders to put on this forum, committed to do others. No. I can't speak. I know that there's others that are in the work. In fairness, I don't know of another one that is scheduled at the time being, but I know that's in the works.
Is there any hope of having opposition heard to this, actual opposition heard to this? Because there was a list of fine things that could be put there other than a data center that you don't need a zoning memorandum for. Many things our city could use, actually, that would be better to have there. Transit center. Agricultural things? We could put a Uri side farm right there. Oh my God. Oh, a library. The YMCA. Literally so many fucking things.
So some of the questions were, how can neighbors remain engaged? That's contacting me. That's continuing to participate. Yes, so if you search Andy Nielsen, City of Indianapolis, you have my email address and my phone number. I answer all of my emails. I answer every single phone call and respond to every single text message. There will maybe be another opportunity for a community forum. This will also go through a public process that will have robust community input as this process is moving on, of which I will also be a participant in. So that's what we know right now, and continue to keep folks informed on next steps. Yeah. They've said it's been continued, and when we close up, we'll kind of get that date set. Yes. So we get another person. Yeah.
Hello, Thomas Chris. I live on North Downey Avenue. My concern is with the diesel generators. I see you've got 56 totaling 168 megawatts. The figures you have are best case scenario, right? The Clean Air Act regulations specify that you don't have a limit during emergency situations, right? Because they're there as a backup. So what constitutes an emergency situation for DC blocks? Is it load shedding from AES when the grid is stressed? Or is AES going to give you incentives to crank down during peak hours? Are you actually going to lower the utilization of the data center, or are you just going to turn the diesel generators on?
Appreciate that. None of our data centers operate with load shed. It's detrimental to the data center itself. So what you asked, what constitutes an emergency, it is a loss of utility, and they will kick on, and as soon as utility is established for 30 minutes after that, they'll cut back off. And this is all done automatically. But like you say, that's how that system operates. And we don't do load shed. I used to work for the utility in Alabama, and I brought that up, and my boss said, no, that's not a good idea, because we don't want someone else controlling the electricity, turning it on and off, because it's bad for the equipment and bad for the customers.
Okay. Why not batteries? Battery backups.
Well, the amount of energy that's used and stored in those batteries is not enough to sustain long-term outages, and it all depends on load of the data center. So if you're running at 80% of the rated load, those batteries can only last for 10 minutes, and that's in an emergency situation. They are there specifically, as David mentioned, to ride through until the generator's cranked 10 seconds afterwards. That's all done via the automation.
Okay, I'm not sure that's super correct. Going back to a previous, someone asked about power usage, and nuclear is coming up. Nuclear is not coming up. Most generation is coming from wind and solar, and how does that work? With batteries. There's a lot of batteries being installed. I work at an independent system operator. I see plans. You can use batteries. It's just more expensive, but they would have zero emissions.
Right, the footprint, well, they're not zero emissions because they still have to be made.
Then they can be recycled and turned into new batteries. The diesel has to be created, shipped across the Strait of Hormuz. It never ends. The regulations you're complying with are best case scenario. When the grid goes down, your generators fire up, and then you have no limit. And on top of that, there are discussions about adding exceptions to the Clean Air Act regulations to allow for you to work with grid operators to ensure a safe grid. So they're going to allow you to run the generators more.
Hi, my name is Kent Moore, and I am one of your most adjacent neighbors. I live right behind the old Dairy Queen. I also have a degree in physics, and my first computer was an Apple IIe with 128K of memory and two 360K disk drives. And that's when they really were floppy. So I've watched this industry grow from the beginning. Folks, if you're sitting back there with a cell phone in your hand, or you had directions here tonight, or you have hospital records, and you're complaining about the power consumption of these data centers, you're kind of like the guy who's complaining about the global warming from ranchers and the methane emitted from their cows while he's sitting in cheeseburger in paradise chowing down a big one. Okay, things have changed. As he said on the first slide, that is the new reality. Doctors don't file your medical records in their cabinets anymore, so the nurse receptionist can bring them back when you come in for your yearly visit. As far as your closed loop, guys, just explain it. It's like a car cooling system, except that your coolant is FDA approved. If you've driven a car here, you've used that same kind of system. Finally, I'm working on recovering heat from things and turning it directly into electricity, so get a hold of me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Arden Gervais, Irvingtonian for many years and frequenter of the Pennsy Trail. You mentioned quite a bit about being good neighbors and then kind of touched on a couple of things that you plan to do, including a grant to Indy Park Alliance and a commitment around that. And then just a couple of comments as well. One, I'd like to know what that grant amount is and what, if you have that earmarked for anything outside of just being used for the Pennsy. Two, I'd be interested to hear if the decibel expectation would be separate for the substation or if that would be the boundary you're using. Because I think a lot of the concern that I'm hearing is how's that going to affect the school and the substations, what's the closest to the school. Also, I think it'd be really nice as neighbors to maybe commit to keeping maybe a half mile of the Pennsy clean in front of your area with the substation. Be a nice little extra incentive for the community. But yeah, if you want to answer the grant amount question for Indy Park Alliance.
I mean, we don't have that yet. That's still coming and that's being negotiating, but we will be discussing that and we will be publicizing that obviously as soon as we have that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I can just add, we inquired about adopting the Pennsy Trail along the property line, and we're told that it would be the process or the mechanism to do that is a grant through the Park Alliance, and so that was updated to our commitments over the weekend. Those are on our website, dcblocksindy.com, and you can find that specific commitment there.
Hi, I'm Diana. I live about half a mile from the school that's there. I do have a quick question. So you guys, asked us what our sources were for our issues with the environment and the economic impact. These are first-hand accounts that we're seeing online from people who are living in those communities. You guys have been building these data centers for, 10 years? Have you guys had any third-party data to show the economic and environmental impact? Because I didn't see that on the slide. Is that something you would be providing on your website at any time soon?
We will. We are crisping that up. Even as we speak, their team's working on that. We will be offering.
Timeline? Because, I mean, you got to convince us. You got to convince us.
Weeks, like, a few. We're working on it now. We're putting stuff up. I'm losing my voice. We're putting that stuff up regularly, so that's gonna come. That's gonna come shortly. The brownfield document is yes, but in terms of the you were asking about studies.
Yeah,
and
the
data
studies, because you've done this for 10 years, so
economic-
you should have the data, I hope.
Economic impact and all that. Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'll look forward to seeing it.
So we're almost right at time. So I just want to, I think now is time to land the plane. I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight, for sharing your thoughts ahead of time online, for all of the outreach to date. I do want to thank DC Blocks for coming into our community and hearing our community out. I know there's going to be some continued engagement. As a next step from me, you will see a community survey, which I will be sending across all channels I know to solicit feedback from residents in District 14. That will be an opportunity to ask additional questions, and I'm happy to continue to funnel over to DC Blocks and keep you all informed as this process moves forward. So with that, we do have to, I think I'm not missing anything else, but with that, we're going to conclude the forum this evening. Folks will be around, I'll be around, but we have to be out the door by 8:45 tonight, or we're going to have to stay here all night. So I don't think anyone wants to do that. So thank you all for coming out. Appreciate it. Yes.
Nice. It's Heather, right? Carrie. Carrie. Oh, okay. I got them mixed up. Nice to meet you, Carrie. I look forward to October. I still look forward to seeing you. Yeah. I'm gonna get a hold of her and tell her.